Thanks, Sally. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. This actually looks a bit like blind dates, so if you think you're in the wrong room, we're actually talking about financial well-being. But yeah, I mean, I'll give you a bit of background initially. But does anyone know? We're quite interactive as well. This is going to be more of a chat, and obviously nothing about really us and Wagestream, and much more about NHS Frimley and how they think about well-being strategies and especially sort of financial well-being. Does anyone know what income streaming is? Okay, good, you're in the right place. That's what, let me educate you. So basically it's a new technology emerging that will allow any employee of a company to have access to their earnings as they earn them. So no form of debt or credit, merely allowing people or giving staff liquidity back between pay cycles with the real remit that they don't go into debt. They don't have to incur overdraft fees, credit card debt, or the worst thing in anyone's life is to take a payday loan. And giving that cash flow back to staff is something that a lot of companies are looking at, especially when you have a lot of shift workers, a lot of people on lower incomes. Can you give them that liquidity back and help them get through pay cycles? And it's all done really through contracting with a business and allowing their staff to have access to an app to enable them to do that. So my name is Peter. I'm the co-founder of a company called Wagestream, which is an income streaming platform. So I'm not biased at all in this, so I'm going to shut up in a minute and really focus on NHS Frimley and what they've done and how they think about things. I guess the best thing to do is probably give you guys, just do a quick introduction on who you are and what you do, and then obviously we'll start.
Yeah, so this is working. Hi everyone, Angelo, HR Programme Manager for, of course, NHS Frimley.
And Michael Ellis, Assistant Director of HR at Frimley.
Great. So NHS Frimley is a large trust. It's about 11,000 workers, and you guys obviously are, you're under a very, I guess I should say, a very challenging environment in terms of, a huge amount of staff. We all hear about the NHS every day being used as political football on the news. There's probably never a news article in the top 5 pages of every paper. There'll be some NHS article, whether there's an election going on or not. So obviously, I think everyone appreciates you guys have a lot of challenges in terms of just day to day, and also, how it'd be great just to give everyone a bit of an overview of like how do you guys actually get through a day, bearing in mind all the pressures that happen to you, and how do you think about like strategically looking after staff or implementing wellbeing solutions. But just give people a bit of like a day in the life, if you want. I mean, is anyone here from the NHS or anyone from healthcare? Okay, good. This will be good. Let them know.
I think lots of coffee is the one that gets me. I mean, it changes so frequently. I think so. My remit covers a lot of recruitment, so a lot of what we do is focused on recruitment planning, resource planning. We're doing a lot of capital development at the moment, so we're actually building a new hospital. So part of that at the moment is working on workforce plans around that and the kind of the new staff that we're going to need. You'll see all over the news that there's never enough of anything for the NHS in terms of staffing. So we're doing a lot of work on things like international recruitment, kind of attraction campaigns, all that sort of thing. My remit also covers a lot of our HR system stuff. So looking at stuff like this, looking at all of our wellbeing and staff benefits kind of offering. We're doing a lot at the moment around retention and wellbeing, and kind of trying to improve that. So we recruit something like 1,700 people a year into the organisation. We lose as many, so actually what we need to do now is we're focusing a lot more on trying to keep them, because actually it's really hard work recruiting that many people a year.
Okay, great. And I know that, obviously with some staff striking or just trying to fill rotas, I know, Saf, you've been out there portering as well, and you've got the chairman and the CEO of the trust to do that as well. So this is that's extreme scheduling, I guess, and extreme resourcing. But we know, and you guys are well aware, that the NHS workers are the most prolific users of payday loans, and that's probably down to the size of the organisation, 1.3 million plus employees. Like, when you guys think about financial well-being, what do you think about, and do you have many real-life cases with workers that you guys have to deal with on a weekly, monthly basis?
So I think we've got a very robust health and wellbeing strategy at Frimley. So the 3 usual strands, the physical wellbeing, mental wellbeing, and also financial. And where we kind of partnered with Wagestream was with the results that was given to us from the staff survey. It was quite evident that there were recurring themes and trends coming up with what employees were mentioning on the staff survey. So that kind of led us towards doing some market intelligence and doing some due diligence in terms of who could we potentially partner with to offer this solution to staff. And the common thing which was arising was about bank work and getting paid weekly, and having a more innovative solution towards pay as opposed to it just being at the last Thursday of the month and so forth. So that's what the key driver was for us. And I think one of the most important USPs that Wagestream offered, and it was important for us in terms of our trust values and strategy, was it's not a payday loan and it's not a overdraft that you kind of go into some form of debt or 99.9% APR or whatever it is. It's access to your money as and when you want it. So for us that was very important.
No, that's great. And I know, Michael, you said, because a lot of people look at this type of model, and it's new technology really that's allowed us to access workforce management data, which is held with employer, and obviously understand every minute of every day how much people earn. But the natural question sometimes is, well, why don't you just pay more frequently? Did you look at that as an option, knowing that potentially financial wellness, more frequent pay may be helpful to staff? Did you ever look at that?
Definitely. As Seth mentioned, the sort of request for weekly pay came out quite a lot through various things like our annual staff survey and other kind of just informal routes. But it's always something we've been a little bit reluctant to do, just as it's hard work, isn't it? It's effectively moving from running one payroll a month to 5 or 6 to do that. So we did. We looked at this and actually heard through. We came across Wagestream by chance, I suppose. One of the competitors contacted us, and we kind of then thought, oh, this looks interesting. Let's explore this a bit further. This was at the same sort of time we were being asked to do weekly pay or more frequent, and we know that a lot of people who work additional shifts do it because they want that money. And people working on the traditional model, if people do shifts now, they're probably not going to get paid those until the end of January. So actually, for people wanting more money for Christmas, that sort of thing actually just doesn't work. We looked at Wagestream, and that gave that ability for staff to take their earnings as soon as they earn them. So as soon as someone's worked that additional shift, the very next day they can then draw that down and have that straight into their bank account. And comparing that against the other options of running a more kind of traditional weekly or more frequent payroll cycle, actually that's a very much more expensive, much more resource-intensive model for us to do. Something our payroll manager hated the idea of as well and threatened to resign every time we talked about it. So, depending on how you feel about him, that may or may not have been a bad thing. But this basically offered us an option of ticking that box of actually giving people more frequent pay, and actually more frequently than they were asking for. And opened it up to something that anybody and everybody could use as an optional benefit, rather than something like weekly pay, which would almost be where you're either in or out. You haven't really got a choice to do it. It gives people that flexibility to kind of take their money as and when they want it, if they should need it.
No, that's great. And I mean, this is a new and innovative space, and I guess I could say that people don't naturally think of the NHS as being an innovative sort of organisation. It is hard to get things done, and you guys have done some incredibly innovative things around just people's, the employees' well-being in general. And when you thought about this as a solution, how are you actually able to get it done? And you did it very quickly, and you made your decisions. This is pretty impressive. So how did you actually manage to get the organisation to buy into that? Albeit you guys obviously lead what you're doing.
We've been having those conversations around pay frequencies for a little while, and we'd sort of been exploring this and looking at other similar providers. Actually, at the point we kind of came to the decision we were going to progress with this, we did this sort of thing about looking at basically this versus running a more frequent payroll. Actually, just on a pure financial basis, it made sense. And took that through our exec team. They were more perfectly happy to sign that off on that basis. And on the backdrop of all our other retention work, actually, it just fitted with kind of what we were doing currently. We had that signed off through our exec team in middle of August. Saf joined the organisation at the beginning of September, and I said, we are launching this on the 1st of October, off you go.
So you gave him no choice, basically.
He had no choice, he had 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's great.
And we did, yeah. So, it's the NHS, there's loads of red tape, but actually, as something new, that made it a little bit difficult in terms of getting through things like procurement and stuff, because, there's not really much to compare against. There isn't, things like procurement frameworks and all the rest of it that you'd normally have to go through, and quite often that would take months. So a lot of that was kind of selling that on the basis this is kind of new, it's a pilot initially, we're trying something out, and actually that helped us get it through a lot of that kind of red tape quite quickly. And actually the return on investment for doing it, within the year, and in terms of our turnover, should more than pay for itself.
No, that's great, and I think when you look at everything, any wellness strategy really is about staff engagement and how you increase staff engagement, and the outputs of that would be less people leave the organisation, more people are more productive, less absenteeism, all those types of things that come from better staff engagement. And Saf, when you look at like financial wellness as a strategy, or any wellness strategy really, like what are the outcomes you're actually looking for in the business? Because you're never going to do anything that you don't see there's going to be a positive outcome. So what do you think the outcomes are? And I know it's early days, but what's the sort of strategy around that, or the incentive to do something like this?
I think that's a good question, Peter. But I think firstly, in terms of sickness absence, I think it'd be less presenteeism, increase in outputs and productivity. So hopefully that is something that we're moving towards. It's very early days because as shared with you all today, we implemented Wagestream on the 1st of October, and just adding on from what Michael said, I started in the beginning of September, and I now look back at it and think, how on God's earth did that happen in 4 weeks? It's unheard of. For those working public or private sector, we all experience information governance, we all experience internal communications, and we all experience procurement delays and so forth as well. But it moved at the speed of light and at pace. So 4 weeks to implement is quite a very tight timescale, but it happened. So that was good. But going back to your question, Peter, I think it will be an increase in productivity, sickness absence, and we look at the kind of data that comes through, certainly from Frimley, and when we're looking at sickness absence, it's kind of the usual trends that are emerging, and it seems to be moving more towards mental and financial well-being as opposed to what it was once upon a time ago, and it used to be physical well-being. And when you're looking at the clinical codes, that's certainly the trend that's emerging. So this is one of the reasons why also we thought we need to put some sort of intervention or measure in place.
I think something like 20% of our sickness absence is stress related, and certainly a significant proportion of that will be down to financial stress.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I suppose, cover where people are going through financial stress and that impacting them at work as well, because people will be thinking about that, and that will be kind of playing on their mind all throughout the day. So that impact on productivity is potentially huge.
Great. And is anyone here today looking at as in wellness strategies around mental well-being or financial well-being? Is anyone actively looking at these types of things for the business? Because I know one of the challenges, and we work with quite a few different companies, is actually once you put something in place or have something live, is actually communicating it and making sure at least staff are aware of it. Many of these wellness solutions are voluntary, so people can choose whether or not to use them, and that's fine. But actually, it's actually getting people to understand they're available, which is always one of the major challenges, I guess. So how do you guys look at that type of thing, and what have you deployed any strategies that work? I know, with GDPR, sometimes it's harder to do these things than you'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, ideally we would have loved to just sign everyone up automatically and say, this is here you go. But as you say, GDPR and other things kind of make that quite difficult. Yes, Saf, I think you had a bit of a nightmare with comms, it's fair to say.
Yeah, we experienced a lot of challenges with our internal communications, and again, I think it's mainly because we were moving at pace. So, of course, their timelines weren't kind of in sync with our timelines in terms of launch and implementation. How we've kind of gone, not around that, but what we found quite effective in terms of marketing is the direct marketing approach. So, believe it or not, and I'm surprised by this, but leaflets and flyers and direct marketing to actually going into sort of hospital breakout areas, going into restaurants, going into staff breakout rooms and so forth, and literally just handing out leaflets with QR codes on there to say, here's Wagestream, here's our product and so forth, and it works. And I thought we moved away from this about 10 to 12 years ago because, the world, everyone talks to you about digital in inverted commas and, digital concepts and Instagrams and Facebooks and LinkedIn's and, everyone talks about these social media platforms. But honestly, the leaflets seem to be very, very successful. Direct marketing.
That's great. And I think when you look at, again, these types, and we're one of a number of different companies doing this type of thing, but when you look at financial well-being in particular, because this is what this session's about, what type of behaviours do you want to start seeing with staff, and what sort of positive outcomes are you looking for? And I know it's early days, but I know as an NHS Trust and a large one, you guys are quite unique in terms of, huge amount of shifts and rotas and different staff workers and different, I mean, I can't even get my head around how you manage all that, but what sort of outcomes are you guys looking for from now and in the future?
I think a more harmonious workforce, but importantly, giving our employees the options to be able to get paid as and when they need. So I think I mentioned a few questions ago about it not being a payday loan, but also it's important to mention that life occurs and life happens for many people. We're obviously very, coming up to a very close road up to Christmas. Someone's car's broken down, your tyres need to be changed, your boiler's packed up, your washing machine's gone. Life happens, all of those things occur. And they're not necessarily things that you budget or plan for, because they're obviously things that happen in an emergency. So it's great to be able to give our staff and our employees an alternative, compelling alternative, as opposed to it rather just for actually go and contact a payday loan or go and rack up your credit card or whatever it would be. So I think it's really important to have that option for staff. So we're empowering our employees by giving them this financial solution.
Great. There's some questions behind me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we've got a few moments, so thank you for the questions coming through. There's lots of good engagement going on. So what percentage of the employees have taken up the scheme so far, and do you have targets for aspirations?
I can answer that. So in terms of uptake, we've had 5 to 6% uptake thus far. A little bit slower than we would have liked it to be. But again, as I've been quite transparent and shared with everyone, it was mainly due to communications and not having so much communication, which kind of hindered the uptake. But that was the only reason why. So about 5 to 6%, but we've had discussions with Wagestream at the moment to look at what can we be doing in the new year in terms of incentives and initiatives to be able to increase that uptake.
And I think I saw another question, it's not just up there, but related to that. Is it the same employees each week, month going through, or are you seeing, is it an average of 5 to 6% with different people coming in at different times?
It's an average of 5 to 6% people with different people coming in at different times, and different streams happening at different times as well, which is important.
Okay. So I guess the question here about kind of balancing that with education for employees in terms of how good financial management is in place. Have you kind of done much in that area alongside this?
Actually, Wagestream itself includes some elements of education as part of the platform. So actually, even if you don't use the streaming, there's articles and things through there that people can use, and it is some of that simple thing: how to budget, how to read a payslip, how to deal with that sort of thing. Separately to that, we also have an employee assistance program, so that includes a route for people to actually have that kind of counselling route for when they've got issues that they need to talk to people about. We're also looking at a range of other kind of more broader sort of mental and financial wellbeing offerings, so we are looking at more in detailed financial education as well. It's one of the, and it's not something for everyone, I think, and as Saf mentioned, people are going to have different things at different points in their life, so it's trying to provide something that kind of gives everyone that access as and when they may need it, and it's not something, it's there as an optional thing. It's not for us to try and force it at people, because it's quite a private thing, and actually people don't want to come and talk to, people are reluctant to come and talk to their manager or to their HR about something like it. So something like this actually is something that's just there, and if people want to use it, they can. We don't necessarily have to know that people are going through financial difficulty and that sort of thing. So it avoids that process of people having to come to payroll and say, actually, I'm really struggling, can I have an advance on pay? They can just go straight and use that, and we essentially we're none the wiser.
Yeah. I totally share that, because we have similar things that how do you measure success? Because as you say, in the GDPR world, you don't know individually what people are engaging in. So have you got?
For us, for us, it's going to be looking at our turnover, our retention rates. So as I mentioned, we lose something like 1,600 people a year, so it's about 13% turnover for us. So actually seeing a drop in that, and there's all sorts of measures on how you measure what turnover costs and things on recruitment costs or the cost of training up people, etc. But for us, something like if our turnover drops by 1%, that's 100 less people leaving. That's 100 less doctors and nurses that we've got to recruit. So that's huge. Also things like how many additional shifts people work. So actually hoping that we see an uptake and things like that.
And I think it's fair to say in our organisation, not getting too hung up in the measurement. A direct line of sight is very, very difficult in this area, isn't it? But it's going back to its purpose. It's the right thing to be doing for your employees. So thank you everyone for your engagement. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and experience.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Saf.
Thank you.
And you're hanging around if there's questions later
If there's
today?
food, yes.
If there's food, feed them food. All right, thank you very much.